He looked at me like a stranger, but held my hand like he never stopped loving me. He forgot my name, forgot our vows. But when our fingers touched, he remembered how to breathe. Some love stories begin with a first kiss. Ours began again with a second goodbye. You are listening to He Forgot Me Beautifully, an audiobook that asks, what do you do when the one you love forgets you, but his soul still reaches for yours in the dark?
I woke before dawn. The light hadn't touched the sky yet, but the air already held its breath. I didn't need to open my eyes to know he was in the next room. Alive, breathing, unaware. He doesn't remember me, but I remember everything. The way his hand once curled around my hip in the dark, the way his laughter sounded like a cracked bell, the way he said my name, like it was both prayer and promise. Now he says it like it's a name on a form. Anna. I got up, moved quietly. My footsteps memorized the path to the bathroom, not because I feared waking him, but because if he saw me too early, he might look at me like I was a stranger. Again, the mirror greeted me with familiar grief. Same dark eyes. Same lips he used to kiss like he was starving. Same skin. But everything underneath? Different. Worn thinner. Older. Bruised in places that no one sees. He doesn't remember the wedding. The vows. The night we lay naked on the living room floor, eating burnt lasagna, laughing until we cried. He doesn't remember the time he whispered, "You're my home," and fell asleep with his mouth on my shoulder. He doesn't remember how he clutched my hand at my father's funeral like it was the only lifeline either of us had. He forgot me, but he forgot me beautifully. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, put on the cardigan he used to steal because it smelled like me. I still wear it, still hope it might make something in him stir. By the time I stepped into the kitchen, the smell of coffee wrapped around me like memory. He was already there. Sitting at the table, back straight, shoulders squared. His fingers wrapped around the same mug he'd used every morning for 2 years, the one I painted for his birthday. The one with the chip he swore he'd never fix because perfect things are boring. He looked up, and his eyes passed over me like I was no one. "Good morning," I said. He nodded, polite. "Morning." I waited for something. A flicker, a twitch, a hesitation, anything. But there was nothing. Just the way you greet a neighbor you vaguely recognize at the grocery store. I sat across from him, close but not close enough to feel the warmth that once pulled me in like a tide. "How did you sleep?" I asked, careful with my voice, like it might break between us. "Fine, thank you." I watched his hands, his long fingers, the same ones that used to tangle in my hair, trace circles on my back, write notes in the margins of my books. Now, they just gripped the mug, steady and emotionless. His face was still beautiful, still achingly familiar. A little thinner, hair longer than he used to keep it, a scar above his eyebrow I hadn't seen before. But it was him. It was still him. Except it wasn't. And I didn't know how to breathe through that. We didn't speak much that day, or the next. He followed the therapist's instructions. Keep things simple. Don't force memories. Focus on routine. Let familiarity build trust. Let trust rebuild recognition. So I made him breakfast. I handed him his coat. I showed him the garden he used to weed shirtless while singing off-key to our tomatoes. But he never asked why I cried while making eggs, or why I hesitated before touching his shoulder, or why my voice sometimes shook when I said, "I'm glad you're here," because he didn't remember that he used to love me. And I didn't know how to make him fall again without breaking myself open. On the third night, he sat beside me on the couch. We weren't touching, but we were closer than we'd been. The rain tapped gently against the windows. The house felt quieter than usual. I glanced at him. He wasn't watching me. But he wasn't really watching the TV either. His gaze was lost, unmoored. I remembered that look. It used to mean he was deep in a thought he couldn't yet name. I dared to ask, "You okay?" He blinked, looked at me slowly, like he had to remember who I was. Then he said, "I don't know why, but this room feels safe." I smiled. It cracked something inside me. "You used to say that all the time." He tilted his head, studying me. "Did I?" I nodded. "Almost every night." He didn't respond, but he didn't look away either. And in that silence, something passed between us. Not recognition, but something quieter. Something like wondering. His hand rested on the couch between us. Bare, open, waiting. I let my pinky brush his, just enough to feel the warmth of his skin. His breath hitched, just barely. But it was there. He doesn't remember me, but his body did. And for now, that was enough. I found him in the garden the next morning. He was kneeling beside the rose bushes, sleeves rolled up, hands dusted with soil. He didn't hear me at first, just knelt there, turning the dirt over slowly, carefully, like it might whisper something back to him. I stood by the door for a moment, watching him. His body remembered how to move, The way he brushed the leaves aside with the back of his knuckles, the exact angle of his wrist when he pressed his palm to the ground, checking the moisture. It was all muscle memory. Unthinking. Like love. I stepped forward. The screen door creaked as I opened it. He looked up, squinting against the morning sun. "Morning," he said, shading his eyes. "I hope it's okay. The garden just felt familiar." "It is," I said softly. "You used to say it was the only place quieter than your own head." He gave me a small, half smile, the kind that doesn't touch the eyes but holds a flicker of warmth behind it. "That sounds like me." I walked toward him, careful not to step on the herbs we planted last spring. He watched my feet, then my hands, then my face. He didn't look away when I met his gaze. "Want some help?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, sure." I dropped to my knees beside him, the earth cool through the fabric of my jeans. I reached out for the trowel resting in the grass, our fingers brushing for the briefest second. I didn't look at him, but I heard his breath catch again. He was remembering something. Not a moment, not a fact, but a sensation, a familiarity that his brain couldn't explain, but his body still clung to. We worked side by side in silence. The sun climbed slowly, the smell of lavender wrapped around us, earthy and clean. Bees buzzed somewhere in the distance. His arm grazed mine once, and he didn't pull away. He just let it stay there, warm and solid and real. I wanted to lean my head against his shoulder. I wanted to kiss the dirt smudges off his cheek. I wanted to say, "You love me. You still do. You just don't remember yet." But instead, I said, "You planted this garden with me, every inch of it." He looked around. "Yeah?" I nodded. "We argued about the mint. You said it would take over. I said it was worth it. We compromised by planting twice as much as we should have." That made him laugh. Soft, gentle, but real. "I like that," he said, "compromising by doing it your way." "You didn't mind," I said. "You liked watching me win." He didn't answer, but his smile stayed, even as he turned back to the roses. I watched his profile, the curve of his jaw, the slope of his neck. I remembered pressing kisses just there, right where his skin dipped beneath his collarbone. I remembered how he used to tilt his head when I did, like he was giving me permission to stay there forever. He reached for the pruning shears. I leaned closer. "Be careful." That one. Too late. He clipped the wrong stem. I winced. "She was your favorite." He blinked. "She?" "The bush," I said, brushing my fingers through the fallen petals. "You named her May. Said she was stubborn and bloomed late but held on longer than the others." He stared at the plant, lips parting. His brow furrowed. "May," he said quietly, like the name meant something. Like it had its own gravity. "Why does that feel?" He didn't finish, but I saw the way his fingers trembled just slightly against the shears. "Sometimes," I said, "memories don't come back in words. They come back in feelings, in your hands, in the sound of the wind, in the weight of silence." He looked at me, and for the first time since the accident, his gaze didn't just study me, it searched me. Like something in him wanted to find me again. "Do you?" He started. "Do you ever feel like your body knows things your mind doesn't?" "All the time," I said, my throat tight. "All the time." He looked down, touched a fallen petal, rubbed it between his thumb and forefinger like it might tell him a secret. We didn't say anything else, but he didn't leave the garden that morning. He stayed with me, and when I stood to leave, brushing soil from my knees, he looked up at me and asked, "Can we plant something new today?" My heart thudded. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, we can." He was in the study when I found him next. I'd been looking for him for almost an hour. The house was quiet. Too quiet. A silence so deep it almost had weight to it, like the walls were holding their breath with me. Then I heard it, the sound of a page turning. Soft. Deliberate. Familiar. I pushed open the old oak door, heart suddenly too loud in my chest, and there he was, standing by the bookshelf. One hand on the ladder, the other holding a book. He didn't turn to look at me, didn't say my name, didn't acknowledge the creak of the door. He just stared at the cover in his hands, as if it had spoken. I stepped forward, slowly. "You found it," I said. He glanced over his shoulder. "This was mine?" "It was ours," I said gently. "You bought it the day we moved in. Said the red spine reminded you of something dangerous and beautiful." He nodded faintly. His thumb brushed over the edge of the cover. "I've been trying to remember why it makes me feel..." He paused. "Strange." "Not strange," I said. "Familiar." He didn't argue. He opened the book slowly, like it was fragile, like it might fall apart if he moved too fast. I watched his eyes scan the first page. His lips moved silently, forming the words. I knew the passage. "We are made of memory, even the forgotten ones, especially the forgotten ones." He blinked. His jaw clenched. He turned the page, and there it was, the note I had written tucked between chapter 2 and 3. It was old, faded, written on a torn receipt from a rainy Thursday 3 years ago. his handwriting on the back, mine on the front. I watched him lift it slowly. "Anna," he said, voice lower now, strained. This is yours." I nodded. "Read it." He did, silently, mouth barely moving. When he reached the end, his breath caught. He stared at the paper like it might dissolve if he looked away. "I wrote this," he whispered, turning it in his fingers. "On the back? That's my writing." "Yes," I said, barely breathing. "I called you sunlight with a mouth." I smiled, tears hot and still. "You said that the first time I laughed during sex." His eyes flicked up, startled, but not with embarrassment, with recognition. Something shimmered behind them. A flash, like a match had been struck in the dark. "I remember the sound," he said slowly. "Not the moment. Just the sound of you laughing. Against me. And the way it made my chest feel too small. My knees almost gave out. You told me once," I said, "that you didn't believe in soulmates until you heard that laugh." He looked down at the book again, then back at me. "Why did I forget you?" he asked, voice raw now, throaty, like something inside him had cracked open. My voice shook. "Because the brain is cruel. Because accidents don't ask permission. Because the part of you that remembered me was soft, vulnerable, and soft things are the first to bleed." He swallowed. I stepped closer. Slowly, carefully. I touched the edge of the book. Then his hand. He didn't flinch. His fingers curled around mine. Not tight, not certain, but willing. "You wrote that note the night I told you I was afraid," I said. "Afraid you'd forget, that you'd wake up one day and not see me the same way." And I said... He closed his eyes, searching. I said, "Even if I forgot your name, I'd remember your eyes." I reached up, gently turned his face toward mine. "You told me they were the color of the sky, right before a storm breaks." His eyes locked on mine. Then, like thunder rolling in the distance, I remember kissing you in the kitchen. My breath caught. "You dropped a plate," he whispered. "It shattered, but we didn't stop." I nodded slowly. My fingers trembled in his. "That was the first time you said you loved me." His mouth parted. "I didn't say it." "No," I said, "but I felt it in your hands, your mouth, your silence." He leaned in slightly, just enough to pull the air tighter between us. Then he pulled back, eyes wide, shaken, confused. "I'm sorry," he murmured. I don't know how to hold all of this." "You don't have to," I whispered. "Just hold me." I stepped forward, and he let me. For the first time since the accident, he wrapped his arms around me. Not politely, not carefully, but like his body remembered the shape of my grief. And for a single moment, I didn't care that his mind was blank, because his soul was speaking. And I was listening. The night was thick with rain. It came in steady, whispering sheets across the windows, wrapping the house in a hush I hadn't heard since before the accident. The storm was soft, but relentless, like something we needed, like something that was always going to come back to us. He was in the living room when I walked in, barefoot, a charcoal gray t-shirt, sweatpants that hung low on his hips, soft with wear, the kind of clothes I used to steal just to feel like I was wrapped in him. He turned when he saw me, one foot tucked beneath him on the couch, book in his lap, closed now. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. I shook my head. "You either?" He gave me a look, soft but direct. "I've been remembering more, in pieces. It's hard to lie still when your head won't." I moved closer. My fingers trailed the edge of the couch before I sat beside him, close, but not touching. "Tell me one," I said. "Just one piece." He leaned his head back, looked at the ceiling like it might hold the answer. "I remember your hair," he said after a long breath. Not what it looked like, but the way it felt, on my face, in my hands, the weight of it when I'd gather it at the back of your neck. My throat closed around the answer I didn't know how to give. "And your voice," he added. "But not what you said, just the sound of it when you were angry, but trying not to be." I let out a quiet laugh, shaky. "That's oddly specific." "It is," he said, then looked at me. "But it's real." The storm deepened outside. Lightning flickered somewhere beyond the glass, painting the walls in pale blue for a split second. I felt the moment press in, and I realized I wasn't afraid of it anymore. This wasn't the version of him I'd lost. It wasn't the man from the hospital bed. It wasn't even the man who had forgotten how to say my name. This version was becoming. "You're remembering me through your body," I whispered. "Through instinct, the things love imprints." He nodded. "Barely. And you're not asking me to be who I was, just to listen when he knocks." I reached across the small space between us, slowly, carefully. My hand rested on his knee, not possessive, not pleading, just there. His breath hitched, and then his hand covered mine, warming it, anchoring it. We stayed that way, long enough for the silence to stretch thin, like sugar pulled across heat. "Then dance with me," I said. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind, like I just asked him to fly. "There's no music," he said. "There doesn't need to be," I replied. He didn't move, but he didn't pull away. I stood, extended my hand again. He stared at it, And then he rose. He took my hand, and we moved. Bare feet on old wood floors, the sound of rain our only rhythm. No steps, no pattern, just slow motion, breathing. His hand slid to my waist. I closed my eyes, rested my palm on his chest. His heartbeat was steady, familiar, the same one I'd fallen asleep against for 7 years. I felt his chin rest lightly against the top of my head. "I think," he whispered, voice rough, "that I used to love you very much." I closed my eyes tighter. "You still do," I breathed. "Your body knows. It's just waiting for your mind to catch up." We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. His hand curled a little tighter at my back, and I could feel the ghost of everything we'd been rising to the surface, like warmth seeping back into frozen skin. We danced, slow, deliberate, until the storm faded, until his hands slid up my spine, his fingers brushing the back of my neck, until his forehead pressed against mine, and he whispered, "Don't stop dancing with me, even if I forget again." And I whispered back, "I won't." Would you like chapter 5 next? In the next chapter, a physical intimacy scene can begin to emerge, deeply emotional, sensual, and slow, where he explores her body with an urgency he doesn't understand, and she lets him in with a trust only grief could teach. I'll continue the narrative across multiple parts to fulfill your request for a vivid and detailed story, ensuring each message contains at least 1,000 words. I want to assure you that I will always follow the story writing instructions. He Forgot Me Beautifully. Chapter 5. Where You Touched Me Last. Audiobook script format, written for narration with clear vocal rhythm, punctuation, and emotional flow. He knocked on my bedroom door. It was past midnight. The rain had stopped hours ago, leaving the world too quiet, too still, like it was waiting for something to break the hush. I opened the door, heart in my throat. He stood there, barefoot again, shirtless this time, and I had to bite back the sound that nearly rose in my chest just from looking at him. His skin held the memory of light. His shoulders, the shape I used to trace with my lips. That hollow beneath his collarbone, I remembered the taste of it. He didn't say anything. Not at first. Just looked at me. Not with certainty. Not with lust. With ache. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Me either," I whispered. We stared at each other like two people on the edge of something. Something slow. Something irreversible. He took a step forward. Then another. I didn't move. When his fingers touched mine, I felt the breath pull from both our lungs. He held my hand. Just held it. Then, he turned it over, lifted it to his mouth, and kissed my palm. My knees nearly gave. His lips were warm, familiar, soft enough to remind me this wasn't about wanting. It was about remembering. I reached up and touched his face. The stubble on his jaw scraped my fingers, rougher than before. His eyes closed at the contact. "I feel like I've touched you here before," he whispered, pressing my fingers to his lips. "Like this isn't the first time I've needed this." "It's not," I said, voice breaking. He opened his eyes, and there was something different there. Something blooming in the dark. Not memory, not clarity, but hunger. Not just for my body, for something beyond it. His hands found my waist, hesitated, then moved slowly, reverently beneath the hem of my t-shirt. Skin to skin. I gasped. He paused. "Is this okay?" I nodded. "Yes." But it came out as a breath, not a word. Because the moment his palms touched my ribs, I remembered every time he'd ever held me when I was breaking. Every time he'd pressed his mouth to the space between my breasts, like he was trying to whisper safety into my bones. He stepped forward, closing the space between us. My back found the wall. His chest pressed against mine. The heat between our skin was unbearable. I could feel his heartbeat. He could feel mine. "You tremble like I used to make you tremble," he murmured against my neck. I choked on a sound. "You don't remember saying that to me," I whispered, "but you just did." He pulled back, staring into me like he was searching the bottom of a well he once fell into and never climbed out of. Then, gently, so gently, I guided his hand to where he touched me last before the accident. Just beneath my ribs, where he used to rest his palm in the dark when we slept. Like a lock he didn't know how to close. He pressed his hand there now, and I watched his body shudder. "I remember," he said, voice wrecked. "I don't know how, but I do. I used to sleep like this. I used to say that this was home." I nodded, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. It still is. His forehead met mine. His lips hovered over mine, not kissing yet, just breathing. We stood like that, suspended. Then, he kissed me. Slow, no urgency, no rush. A kiss that asked, "May I?" And I answered, "Always." I woke to the sound of birdsong, muted, gentle, the kind that rises just before the sun fully spills into the sky. The first thing I felt was the weight of him beside me. Not heavy, not consuming, but present, solid, warm. The sheets between us were still tangled, not from urgency, but from the way we'd fallen asleep, close, but cautious. His arm had slipped beneath mine in the night, and somehow it had stayed there. I didn't move. I just lay there, listening to the rhythm of his breath. It was slower now, deeper. The breath of someone who, even if just for a moment, felt safe again. My fingers twitched against the fabric of the blanket. The memory of last night still hovered in my body, not as heat, but as weight. The way he'd touched my face. The way he'd kissed me like he was remembering the shape of his own mouth. The way he'd whispered, "I used to call this home." I turned slightly, just enough to see his face. He was watching me, eyes open, soft, unshielded. No walls, no confusion, only a quiet, wondering ache. "Did you sleep?" I asked, voice still husky with mourning. He nodded. "Better than I have in months." He didn't look away, not this time. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. His fingers curled around mine, like they'd always known the motion. Like muscle memory had taken over where memory itself refused to go. "Something's shifting," he said quietly. "I know," I whispered. "I can feel it." "I still don't have everything back," he added, voice threaded with guilt. The faces, the days, the words. They're like puzzle pieces in the wrong box. I smiled faintly. "That's okay. We'll find the edges together." He exhaled, looked up at the ceiling for a long moment. Then, "I had a dream," he said, just before I woke up. "What was it?" "I was standing in this room, right here, but the bed was empty, the window was open, and I was looking for you." I stilled. "Did you find me?" I asked. He turned his head to face me again, and in that look, I saw something settle. "I think I already had," he said. I didn't speak. I just let the silence expand. Because it wasn't empty anymore. It was full of things we didn't have words for yet. He ran his thumb gently across my knuckles, back and forth. Slow, measured, a movement so small but it pierced right through me. "You hum when you read," he said suddenly. I blinked. "What?" "You hum," he repeated. "I remembered it just now, the sound of your voice, not singing. Just low, under your breath, like you're breathing through the story." A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. "I haven't done that in front of you since the accident." "I know," he said. But I remember it." I nodded. "You used to say it was the only thing more calming than rain." He smiled. "That sounds like me." We stayed like that. Holding hands, lying side by side in a bed we used to call ours, now redefined by the quiet reclaiming of something lost. No declarations, no grand gestures, just breath, touch, recognition. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own life. He didn't kiss me again that morning. He didn't need to. Because when he pulled the blanket up over both of us, tucked it gently beneath my shoulder, and whispered, "You don't have to do this alone anymore." That was the most intimate thing he could have given me. We left the house together for the first time in 33 days. I counted them. Every one. Every day he spent inside the safe cocoon of forgotten walls. Every morning I watched him walk through doorways like they were first drafts of memories, half written, half erased. But today, he asked, "Take me somewhere we used to go." I looked at him carefully, because I knew what he meant. Not a grocery store, not the hospital, not a safe, sterile place approved by therapists. He meant ours. So I said, "Okay," even though my pulse spiked and my palms turned damp. Because the town held pieces of us, and I wasn't sure if showing them to him would bring us closer, or remind him how far away he still was. We took my car. He sat in the passenger seat with one hand on the windowsill. His fingers tapped an old rhythm against the glass, light, thoughtful, familiar. I used to tease him about it. "You compose when you're thinking." "Do I?" he'd say, and then do it even more. I almost said it again today, almost smiled at the sound. But I didn't, because I didn't want to make him feel like he was wearing someone else's skin. The first stop was the cafe on the corner. It had green awnings. A cracked bell over the door. The scent of cardamom and fresh bread always hit you before the welcome ever did. We used to come every Sunday morning, share a croissant, fight over whose turn it was to order. Sit at the table in the corner, by the second window, the one that caught the golden morning light just right. He walked in before me, paused. Something happened in his shoulders. A shift, a tug. "I've been here before," he murmured. "I think," I nodded. "Every week." He walked slowly through the narrow space. Tables, counter, chalkboard menu. His fingers brushed the wood of the chair at our usual table. Then he stopped, turned, looked at me. "You used to sit here, right?" he asked. Back to the window. "You liked watching the sun move across the floor." Tears pricked my eyes. Yes, he pulled out the chair, waited for me to sit. I did. He sat across from me. The woman behind the counter called out, "Good to see you both again." He gave her a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind you offer when you're pretending to remember someone you know you should. I ordered for us, just like I used to. 1 black coffee, 1 lavender oat latte, a shared almond croissant. When the tray came, he stared at the mug in front of him. lifted it, held it in both hands. "This used to be mine," he said. "Didn't it?" "Yes." He took a sip, closed his eyes. "Still is." We sat in silence for a while. I watched his eyes roam the space. He wasn't overwhelmed. He wasn't panicked. He was settling. It scared me more than if he'd forgotten everything again, because it meant the pieces were starting to glue themselves back together, and I didn't know what shape they'd take. I didn't know if I'd still fit inside them when they did. After the cafe, we walked down Main Street, side by side, not holding hands, but not drifting either. I watched his gaze land on storefronts, lampposts, uneven sidewalks. His mouth would twitch, up or down. I couldn't always tell. We passed the bookstore. He stopped, stared at the window. There was a display of poetry collections, a signed copy of Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet propped at the center. He turned to me. "We used to read in there," he said, "on that little couch in the back." I froze. He hadn't said that name before. "Rilke. Not since the accident. Not even once. You remember that?" He nodded slowly. "It's not a full picture. Just warmth. Words that felt like hands. The sound of your voice, reading to me when I didn't want to talk." I reached for him, not thinking, just needing to feel the skin of his hand under mine. He let me, held it back. People passed around us, but I didn't notice them. The whole street felt quieter now, like we'd stepped into a version of it only we could see. When we reached the crosswalk by the old florist shop, he stopped again, brows drawn. Then he said, "This is where I kissed you in the rain." I turned to him, my breath catching in my throat. "You dropped your umbrella," he added, "and you laughed like the sky had done it on purpose." He turned to me, and I said, "If the sky's gonna make us wet, we might as well make it worth it." My eyes stung. "You remember all that?" He nodded. "Just that one kiss, nothing else. But I remember the weight of your face in my hands." His thumb brushed my cheek, and suddenly, we weren't standing on the street anymore. We were back in that moment. That kiss, that rain, that love. He didn't kiss me now. He didn't have to. The memory was enough to fill us both. For now. Would you like me to continue into Chapter 8? In the next chapter, they'll confront a photo, an image from their past that forces an emotional reckoning and a question. Is it better to rebuild something new or to fight for what was lost? It happened the way most heartbreak does. Quietly. Almost accidentally. I was in the kitchen, rinsing blueberries. The sound of the faucet, the clink of the ceramic bowl. A morning like any other. He walked in behind me, barefoot again. That quiet way he moved, always gentle, always just close enough to make me feel something warm without touching me. Then he stopped. The silence shifted. I turned, and found him standing in front of the refrigerator, staring at it. No, staring through it. His body completely still, except for the tightening in his jaw. "What is this?" he asked, voice barely above a breath. I followed his gaze. The photo. I'd forgotten it was there. Pinned to the fridge door beneath a magnet shaped like a lemon, worn at the edges, slightly curled. A moment from 2 summers ago. We were on the porch. He was behind me, arms wrapped around my waist. I was laughing, head thrown back. His face was turned toward mine, eyes closed. And there was something about the way he held me, like the entire world could fall away and he wouldn't notice. I froze. He stepped closer to it, lifted a hand but didn't touch. "This is me," he said. "Isn't it?" "Yes." "And that's you." "Yes." He turned slowly. "There's so much in it." I swallowed. "I know." He stared at me, and for the first time since the accident, I saw something break in him. I don't remember this. I don't remember that day, that porch, that laugh, but he pointed to the photo. "I know what it feels like." His voice cracked. I look at it and I ache. I ache like I'm missing a limb, like I've been robbed of something I didn't even know I lost. He stepped back from the fridge. "I thought I was okay. I thought we were getting somewhere." "We are." "But that picture," he said, "that version of me, he looks like he'd die for you." I blinked. He would have. His voice lowered, and I don't know if I'm still him. Silence, heavy, unforgiving. I set the bowl down on the counter, slowly. Then I stepped toward him. "Do you want to know what I see when I look at that photo?" He didn't answer. I took another step. I see the man who taught me how to let someone hold me without breaking me, who made burnt coffee every morning because he liked the way I laughed when I complained. I see the man who kissed me when I had a fever, held me when I had a panic attack, danced with me when there was no music playing. That photo, I stopped, swallowed hard. That photo is proof, not of what we had, but of what's still here. He shook his head. But what if I can't be him again? I reached for his hand, held it, lifted it to my chest, right over my heart. "You don't have to be him," I said. "You just have to be you, the version standing in front of me right now, the one who still touches me like he's afraid to let go." His eyes welled. You're asking me to believe in something I can't see. No, I said. I'm asking you to feel something that never left. He looked at me, really looked, and then his hand moved, just slightly, pressed firmer against my chest, as if he could feel my heartbeat through his own confusion. I don't know if I'm falling in love with you again, he whispered, or if I never really stopped. I closed my eyes, let the truth settle in both of us. Does it matter? I asked. He didn't answer, but when he leaned forward, pressed his forehead to mine, and whispered, no. I knew. We weren't starting over, we were continuing. In the space between what was and what is, something else had bloomed. Not replacement, not repetition. Resurrection. I found him in the shed. The air smelled like cedar and old summers, like sawdust and forgotten promises. He didn't hear me at first. The rasp of sandpaper against wood filled the space, rhythmic and patient. I stood in the doorway and watched. He was barefoot again. His shirt clung to his back. His hands moved with purpose, slow, steady, sure. It wasn't just muscle memory. It was something deeper, something cellular. He was building the bench again, the same one he made for me the year we moved in. We used to sit on it in the garden, wine glasses resting on the armrests, our knees brushing in the dark. He carved our initials into the underside of it, not to be seen, but to be felt. A secret just between us. The original bench had cracked during last winter's frost. I couldn't bring myself to fix it. But he could. He turned when I stepped inside, wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist. I remembered it, he said softly. Not all at once, but in my hands, in the shape of the wood, the angles, the way you leaned into me when we sat here. He trailed off. I don't know how I remembered it, but I did. I stepped closer. Your body never forgot, I said. It's been trying to lead your heart back ever since. He set the sandpaper down, looked at me. Every time I smooth it, I feel something settle in me. I reached out, ran my fingers over the unfinished edge of the bench, rough, warm, alive. It's beautiful, I said. So are you, he replied. It hit me harder than it should have, because he didn't say it like a man remembering a script. He said it like it was the first time, the real first time, the kind of first that's earned, not inherited. We stood there in the quiet, then he spoke again, voice low. I've been thinking. I looked at him. What if I never get all of it back? He asked. What if this is it? Just fragments? My chest ached. Then we make something new out of the pieces. He nodded, but his eyes were still storming. I need to ask you something, he said, and I need you to answer like you haven't been trying to protect me. I held my breath. Did I ever break your heart? It landed like glass. I couldn't lie. Yes, I said. He closed his eyes. But you healed it too. I added, you were the reason it broke, and the reason it learned how to beat again. He looked at me then, not with guilt, with reverence. I don't deserve you, he said. You didn't have to, I replied. You chose me, and that was always enough. He stepped forward, took my face in his hands, and kissed my forehead. The kind of kiss that forgives things not even spoken. The kind of kiss that says thank you and I'm sorry at the same time. When I opened my eyes, I knew. We were almost there. Not the end, but the edge of something new. The bench was finished. He carried it out at dusk. The light was soft, amber, and fading. The kind of light that makes even old things feel like beginnings. I followed him into the garden. He didn't say a word, just placed it beneath the oak tree. The same spot where we'd once sat with our fingers laced, watching the stars through the tangled branches. He turned to me, eyes steady. Come sit with me, he said. I did. We sat in silence at first. His arm brushed mine, then stilled, then stayed. I looked at the bench. Fresh wood, warm grain, smoothed corners. It was nearly identical to the original, but not quite. There was a new carving this time, not hidden beneath, but visible. 2 words. Still us. I reached out and touched them. Tears burned my throat. You did this, I whispered. There he nodded. Because that's what it is now. Not what we were. Not what we're supposed to be. Just this. Still us. Different. But real. I leaned into him. His hand found mine. We sat like that for a long time, watching the sky darken, breathing together. Then he said, I won't pretend I remember everything. I know. I might never get it all back. I know. But I remember how it feels to love you. That undid me. Not loudly, not with sobs, but with a quiet unraveling. Because those were the words I'd been waiting for. Not, I remember everything, but I choose you anyway. He kissed the side of my head. I don't want to rewind time, he said. I want to press play, from here, with what I know, and who I am. I looked at him, saw the man I'd loved, the man I still loved, the man he was becoming, all at once. But some of it, I asked, voice shaking, some of it will never come back, will it? He shook his head. No, and that's the part that hurts. I nodded. Me too. And we let it. The grief sat between us, not as a wedge, but as a shared truth, a quiet ache that would always live beneath our joy. And that was okay, because love isn't perfect, recall. It's imperfect return. And he had returned, not as he was, but as he chose to be. He pulled something from his pocket, placed it in my hand, a key, to the shed. "I want you to lock it up after I leave," he said. I blinked. "Leave? Just for a while. I need time. To know myself apart from memory. To see who I am before I was, us. Not because I don't want this, but because I do. Fully." The pain hit sharp, but I understood. Some love stories don't end with a kiss. They end with space, with a promise whispered instead of shouted, with a key placed in a trembling hand. "I'll wait," I said. He looked at me. "Don't." I blinked. "Don't wait," he repeated. "Just live, and if our paths lead back here, I'll knock on that door, and you'll know." I swallowed hard, nodded. We stood. He kissed me once more, slow, steady, certain. Then he walked toward the gate, didn't look back, and I sat on the bench he built me, the one carved with the only truth we needed now. Still us. Whatever that came to mean. It was a quiet morning, the kind that settled gently across the windowsill, light slipping in like warm water through parted curtains. I was in the kitchen, tea steeping, feet bare on the cold tile, the kind of stillness that doesn't ask anything of you. Outside, the garden waited. The bench sat where it always had, beneath the oak, softened by time, untouched since the last autumn leaves had fallen. I hadn't moved it, hadn't carved over it, just left it, as it was, still us. I didn't look at it much anymore, but I thought of it, of him. Not every day, but some days. And on those days, I'd walk past the gate and wonder how far a heart had to travel to remember where it began. Then, the sound. A knock. Not loud, just there. 3 short, uncertain taps. I froze, the mug in my hand stilled, steam rising like breath held too long. No one knocked here. No one needed to. I walked to the door, slowly, pulse steady but climbing. The floor creaked beneath me, the doorknob cool under my palm. I opened it, and there he was. Same eyes, same quiet, hair longer, a bit wind-tossed, a duffel slung over one shoulder. He didn't smile right away. He just looked at me, like he was still trying to understand if this was real, if he'd finally arrived somewhere his soul recognized. I said nothing. Neither did he. Until, "I remember," he said, the words caught in the air like leaves suspended mid-fall. "What do you remember?" I asked. He stepped forward, not touching, not assuming, just present. "All of it. Some of it. Enough," he exhaled. Enough to know I couldn't stay away. The silence between us was no longer empty. It was full of choices, of time, of things unspoken but deeply felt. "I don't need it all back," he added. "I just need now." My breath trembled. Then I stepped aside and said, "Come in." And when the door closed behind him, so did the distance.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more emotional journeys just like He Forgot Me Beautifully. Your next favorite love story could be just one episode away.